stopped?
I want to be careful about saying that any of the individual events that happened in the last few weeks could have been prevented, but we would have been better prepared as a country for the ongoing severe weather events that we are likely to see because of climate change.
If it came down to it, just changing.
Yeah.
If it came down to it, would you work with Te Pāti Māori if it was the only way you could form a government?
I said that we'll set all of that out closer to the election. There is clearly some policies that are being promoted by Te Pāti Māori that the Labour Party would never support, such as the abolition of prisons. That's just something that we would never support.
So that'd be a hard moment to ever compromise in the prison abolition space.
I would love to live in a society where we don't require prisons. Unfortunately, we do live in that society. There will always, sadly, be a need for prisons, and I cannot envisage a scenario at all where Labour would support their abolition.
Is it? Sorry. Are you concerned that this is one of your potential coalition partners and you seem to be so far apart on saying this policy? Are you concerned about where both parties come together and whether you could compete?
Look, I haven't even discussed it with them, but it's not a policy the Labour Party would ever support.
Is it possible to really make the country resilient in terms of slopes and stuff like that when you're looking at these events? The rainfall that we're getting, so much of size, how hard is it actually make it resilient?
One of the things we do need to do is identify areas of risk. So can we stop every slip? No, of course we can't. Can we identify the risks associated with that and make sure that we are building resilient infrastructure around that? There's a lot more we can do as a country.
Was it the right call to hold a political rally last Thursday when there was severe weather?
I mean, the true extent of what we're grappling with, of course, has continued to unfold. We went ahead with our regular schedule. We did monitor the weather forecasts and so on. The advice that we had was that the weather, the worst of the weather would be behind us by then.
The landslide had happened around by that stage when you were trapped. Was it the right thing to do? That's
I did consider that, and we ultimately decided that we would go ahead with that event, but of course it's something that we always do consider carefully. Probably if we knew the full extent of what we've now seen in the last 48 hours or last few days, would we have gone ahead with it? Probably not. I think it's embarrassing for New Zealand that we once again have the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister sending very different messages to the world about New Zealand's commitment to organisations like the World Health Organisation.
Would St Peters wants to review New Zealand's place or support of the World Health Organisation? Do you think it's worth looking into?
The World Health Organisation plays a vital role in ensuring that things like global pandemics are prevented as much as is possible, in ensuring that we're preventing the spread of avoidable illness, that we're sharing the latest medical science on how to avoid things like global pandemics. I think the idea that New Zealand wouldn't be part of the World Health Organisation is just nuts.
Is it, although its budget might be good, do you think it is wasting taxpayers' money? Is it an effective organisation?
We've always got to look at how we can ensure that international organisations that we're a part of are as effective as possible. But we also have to acknowledge we're a small country, and not being part of these organisations would leave us far more vulnerable than being part of them. Winston Peters has been courting anti-vaxxers for about 3 years now, and I'm sure that that's continuing to be a core part of his strategy.
Where's the line for you with the coalition partners? Like you just talked to Julia before about the Te Pāti Māori policy. I mean, is that too far out for you to look? I know you're not going to say who you're going to work with right now, but is that sort of policy too far out for you?
I'm not sure what you... So, I mean, I've said clearly it's not something we would ever do.
But like, them having that policy, does that make you less inclined to want to work?
Ultimately, we'll set out closer to the election which parties we can and can't work with. I'd note that many of the policies the Māori Party are campaigning on at the moment, they campaigned on in 2008 when they ended up then spending 9 years supporting a John Key-led government. They didn't progress any of those policies during that time.
So I guess my question is that prisons policy doesn't rule them out for you?
We're certainly ruling out supporting policies like that.
Now, do you have a policy about requirement for police to wear body cameras that's been talked about for many years? Is that something Labour supports?
Body cameras was something that I looked closely at as Minister of Police. There's a lot of support from that within the police as well. It's certainly something that we would keep open as an option. There's some things to work through. You know, I looked at it as Minister of Police. There's some very practical things to work through, and the police were looking at that closely during the time I was Minister of Police. Oh, it's data storage, issues around privacy and how you deal with that, because once you've created these video records, there's issues around privacy and who can access them that you've got to work through. Our current laws don't necessarily envisage situations like that, so there's just a lot of practical things to work through so that you're clear on, you know, who can access the records, under what circumstances can they access them, how would they be stored. Those were practical things that the police were preparing advice for us on as a government. I'm sure the current government will have received that.
Is Labor discussing the India Free Trade Deal this week? Can you make a decision on whether you support it or not?
We'll be having a conversation about that at our caucus meeting tomorrow. We've got a very, very full agenda tomorrow. If we can conclude that conversation tomorrow, then we'll let you know the outcome of it. But it may be that we need to come back to it just because there's so much happening at the moment. Oh, lots of things. I mean, it's the first week of Parliament being back after the Christmas adjournment. About the NATO troops? In Afghanistan? He's just totally wrong, and I think it's really offensive to those countries who contributed to the international effort in Afghanistan, including New Zealand. New Zealand troops did us proud in their work in Afghanistan, and they deserve more respect than they're currently getting from Donald Trump.
You had a
No, I would not sit on Donald Trump's peace council alongside Vladimir Putin. Yes. I think the fact that Christopher Luxon's leaving open the possibility of him sitting around the table with Vladimir Putin on a peace council assembled and chaired by Donald Trump is embarrassing for New Zealand.
We had a flurry of policies requests last year. When should we sort of expect the next lot to drop? And also, is there any particular areas, because it was quite health focused last year, is there any particular health answering focused last year, any areas we should look at?
We'll be talking about policy throughout the year. Some of that will be about positioning ourselves differently to the current government. So what could people expect to see change under a change of government? Also, what could people expect to see stay the same should the government change? We'll be talking about that throughout the year. In terms of significant election campaign commitments, you shouldn't expect to see much from us in that regard until after the budget, because we've got to make sure that we can deliver on any commitments that we make.
What does the Labour Party caucus realistically need to discuss with regards to the FTA, just that it's currently restricting the party position?
So only a couple of our MPs have been briefed on what's in the free trade agreement so far, so they'll be sharing that with their colleagues, including me, so that we can then identify whether we have any concerns about it and ultimately what our position will be. As I set out last week, though, when I was asked about this, Labor is a party that's strongly in favour of free trade, and so we have generally worked pretty hard over the last 20 or 30 years, whether in government or in opposition, to ensure that we're supporting opening up trading opportunities for New Zealanders.
So there need to be a big red flag in there to stop you from supporting.
The things that I think it won't surprise anyone to know that what our caucus will want to understand are the immigration implications from it. They also, there's a relatively newish clause in there around New Zealand being required to invest in India in order to have the agreement honoured on the India side, and I think we want to understand all of the ins and outs of that, because that's relatively new, and so we want to understand that.
Do you know did New Zealand first ever express regret at getting rid of that $6 billion National Resilience Fund for infrastructure? Winston Peters at Grafton was saying he doesn't think the government or any government has done enough to build climate resilience.
Well, you'd have to ask Winston Peters that. He sat around the Cabinet table when the Cabinet made the decision to abolish the $6 billion fund. When we set that fund up, we knew that that was probably going to be the start of what's going to be a significant investment over the next 10, 20, 30 years in making New Zealand more resilient to extreme weather events. The reality is more extreme weather events are going to happen more frequently.
Do you think it will be an annual summer issue for New Zealand now?
It's certainly likely that we're going to see more extreme weather events in the summer. We'll see some of them in the winter as well. Summer makes New Zealand particularly vulnerable because soils get dry. Large amounts of water hitting dry soil tends to create flooding and slips and so on. And so we've got to be prepared for the fact that we're going to see more of these sorts of things.
On Trump's Afghanistan, do you think the Foreign Minister would have responded to that?
Yes, I do. I think, pointing out that New Zealand's very proud of the contribution that we made in Afghanistan and that we are unhappy with his characterisation of our involvement would be absolutely appropriate. Okay, thanks everyone. Cheers.